of money because they make hardware that you can't stick in a copy machine. And for Hewlett-Packard, software has always been an enabling function. I worked for Hewlett-Packard. I was rather high up in management. I know for a fact that HP has never made money very well with software. What they did was they sold workstations in a time when workstations had 70% margins. Now, of course, the margins are lower, but their profits are coming from hardware and services. Linux is there to bring the customer to the hardware and services.
Let's talk about open source with regards to the developing world. How do you feel open source software can help countries and continents like Africa, South America, and the like?
Well, Africa, South America, and the like, for the most part, need to enable other things than software manufacturing in their economy. They have a great pool of labor who work for less today than people in Australia, than people in the United States. And through the internet, they can give a lot of those people jobs if they can educate those people sufficiently so that they can do various kinds of intellectual work. So how do we provide the infrastructure to do that? Open source software is a great way for them to do that. And what those countries need to work on is having ownership, having people in their countries who understand open source, who can put together applications with open source, and who don't depend on a Microsoft or any other company to make what Africa or China needs. With open source, you start with pieces, you glue them together, you make what you want, you modify it on the way, and you're in charge, you're in control of your destiny. So I think it's a really great solution for countries who really need a software infrastructure rather than a software manufacturing business as the primary motivator of their economies.
The way it's going, do you foresee perhaps in 5 years the end of proprietary software as we know it?
I did the wife test, and the wife test is you give your wife, who's somewhat computer literate but no geek, a piece of Linux software and see if she knows it's not Windows. So I gave her a workstation running Mozilla, and that was upstairs in my house. She had a Windows workstation downstairs, and she used it for a month. And this was not deliberate. It happened by accident. One day I went to the system and I had it in the character mode screen, something only geeks would use. And she walked over to it and said, "How do I get back to Windows?" And I looked up and said, "Well, honey, you don't have Windows." And the whole month had gone by. She'd been using Mozilla mostly. It looked just like Netscape. The start menu was where she expected it to be. Windows behaved like Windows. And that entire month had gone by. She hadn't realized she wasn't using a single Microsoft product. So I think to a great extent, we are already in the place where we can start to see these inroads. Now, unlike some people, I'm not in the business of putting proprietary software out of business. I think that there are some products that are just great for proprietary software. And in the United States, we have very complicated taxes every year. And we use a program to do them. I use one called TurboTax, and it fills out 50 pages of forms because I have a home business, etc. And TurboTax is not written for love. It's not even written by programmers. It's written by tax accountants, and it has this tremendous liability load on top of it because if you don't do your taxes well, you get a penalty from the government, and then you'll sue the TurboTax people. Well, that's a great piece of proprietary software. And there are other pieces of proprietary software which I think can remain proprietary. Another example is there's a company called Synopsys. Synopsys makes integrated circuit design software for making the next generation of microchips. Although there is open source software to do this, Synopsys is always a couple years ahead of it and always gets you the absolute maximum capability out of the chip foundry that actually manufactures those integrated circuits. So Synopsys is selling time value. So take these two examples. Synopsys sells time value and tremendous efficiency, and TurboTax sells this incredible deep knowledge of the tax laws and the fact that they assume some degree of liability. Those are beautiful proprietary software products. Practically everything else can be open source.
Bruce, I'd like to thank you for being with us today, taking some time out of your very busy schedule, I believe, to talk to us here at Go Open.
Thanks very much, and I wish you success with your new program.
Thank you. Bye-bye.